Welcome back, and thank you for joining us this Saturday morning. Panic buying is one of the top headlines of the COVID-19 pandemic. At the start of the pandemic, this international phenomenon threatened health systems' ability to prevent and treat the coronavirus with shortages of hand sanitizers, masks, and painkillers. Following the 2014 West Africa Ebola outbreak, researchers reported that a lack of medical supplies and personal protective equipment, PPE, led to an increased rate of infections and poor control of the epidemic. Now, countries are trying to purchase similar products for their own nationals, and low and middle income countries are facing greater risks of medical product shortages, putting millions of health workers and patients at risk. Nigeria, of course, falls in this category. Where does that leave us as a people when Americans are struggling, UK is struggling? They've got a lot more money than we have. And these products are actually scarce on the market. There is a dearth of those things we just mentioned to fight this pandemic. If it was an epi, we'd be happy, but it's a pandemic.
And these manufacturers are in some of those countries.
Sure. So before they listen to us,
you have to listen to them.
We are on the bottom of the list, sadly. Well, we have doctors and professors who are going to look at this with us this morning. And we have in Lagos with us Dr. Chioma Ejekam. Good morning. Dr. Ejekam is consultant public health physician and executive director, policy research and programs, Bloom Public Health. Good morning.
Good morning.
And thank you for joining us again.
And again.
Thank
you for having me.
From our studio in Abuja, we have Professor Martins Emeje, who is Head Advanced Biology, Chemistry Laboratories, Center for Nanomedicine and Biophysical Drug Delivery. Good morning, and thank you for joining us.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here.
Thank you. Now, let me start with the bird we have in hand.
Madam Professor Adeye is also with us.
Oh, she's ready. Okay. Professor Mojisola Adeye, Director General of the National Agency for Food and Drug Administration and Control, NAFDAC, joins us via Skype. Good morning, madam.
Good morning. Can you hear me?
Yes,
loud and clear.
Thank you.
Good. Now, Dr. Ejekam, all this that I read in the opening seems very, very bleak for low-income and middle-income countries like ourselves, third-world countries, because the big guys, even they have issues, struggling for all these supplies which are required to take care of this matter. What do you see our chances? What are our chances in a circumstance like this?
Our chances to?
Are we going to survive?
Okay, I think a little bit of a background could help us understand this.
Yes.
The importance of this. Of course, medicine is very important. It's one of the core components of a functioning health system. Okay? It's one of the 6 building blocks of the health system. Now, secondly, medicine, its access to quality medicine is one of the indicators or measures of a country towards universal health coverage. And currently Nigeria, not just Nigeria, and the global community is actually, unfortunately, very dependent on almost complete reliance on one region, the Asia region, for supply of active pharmaceutical ingredients and raw materials. Nigeria pharmaceutical sector just supplies about 5% of our local medicines needs, and over 70% of our medicines are imported. A lot of people, even someone like Prof. Emeje, disagrees with that 70, that who has the data. It could even be much more, but let's work with 70 that is kind of accepted. Now, if we have this background, understanding that COVID started with the Asia community in region first. So you just talked about it in the opening. There's natural, of course, reduced production and of course activities, then national hoarding. Then before coming back to Africa, so the risk of shortages. And of course, remembering that COVID only came to an existing communicable and non-communicable diseases. COVID is not the only thing that we're worried about. It's only an addition to what we are struggling. And a lot of this communicable, non-communicable COVID are dependent on pharmacotherapy drugs, to excel or to treat. So as a country, not just Nigeria, Africa, and the global community, we found ourselves with the risk of shortage. A lot of attention, focus is on COVID. Now diverting attention and the medicines that are for other therapies. Something like chloroquine now for malaria, they shift to divert it to, apparently because of perceived effectiveness or use or advantage, benefit in managing COVID. So you see that there's cost increases. Now, causing or leading to exposing us to the risk again of falsified and substandard medicines. Because substandard medicine, when you have low reduced quality, which is often triggered by the push or the pressure to reduce the cost of medicines. But falsified, when there is misrepresentation of the content, complete fraud. And this is driven by, when there is shortage. So you see...
Shortage and demand is high.
Exactly.
We need to go on a very quick break. Just hold your thoughts. We'll back in a moment, and then we'll bring in the two profs from Abuja and then via Skype. Do stay with us. Thank you for staying with us. We're looking at the impact of COVID-19 on medical supplies. And from what we've heard so far from Dr. Ejekam, Nigeria is at a risk of what she says a parallel pandemic of shortage in medical supplies. That's what you said, right? Okay.
There's already shortage.
There's already shortage.
It's not just Nigeria, the global community.
The global community.
Of substandard and the falsified medicines.
Substandard and falsified medicines. Let's bring it, Professor Adeyeye, Director General of the National Agency for Food and Drug Administration Control, NAFDAC. Prof, thank you for joining us. Now, what Dr. Ejekam's talked about now paints a very bleak future. But for one who oversees what happens in the area of manufacturing as regards medicines and food consumables, how do you see this picture?
Well, I actually see a brighter future for Nigeria because COVID-19 woke us up from our comatose state as a country. The health sector was neglected for decades. And what the Buhari administration is doing right now is phenomenal. Because it is something to know that a neglect took place, it's another thing to start finding excuses. The current administration has now committed a lot of money towards the health sector, from the primary health to the tertiary to pharmaceutical companies to researchers. Before COVID-19, we had huge problems, and COVID-19 kind of opened the Pandora box for us because we were over-dependent. From the university system, the university system is weak to produce graduates that can really strengthen the pharmaceutical industry. The regulatory system was weak, and I use was because NAFDAC is no longer what NAFDAC was 3 years ago. I knew a lot about regulatory science before I joined NAFDAC, and there were things that were done wrong, but we cannot live in the past. It is what are we doing right now? If a regulatory system is weak, the pharmaceutical industry will be weak. So what we are doing now is building internal capacity, and that you cannot see on the air. What I mean by internal capacity is making sure we use quality management system. And right now, as we speak, we are going through WHO audit, which is a very tasking and arduous process. And it is the best thing that could happen to NAFDAC. What am I talking about? It is that we are strengthening our system now. We have about 200 pharmaceutical companies in the country. Few of them are moribund. About 165 companies are active. We went through the 165 one by one to gauge their good manufacturing practice compliance. You see, when you talk of falsified medicine or substandard and whatnot, whether it is imported or locally made, if the regulatory system is weak, it will reflect. So we are strengthening that as we speak. The government has devoted money to pharmaceutical industry. And I was the go-between the industry and CBN for them to redo their infrastructure. It is something that the pharmaceutical industry has never seen. And it is not the pharmaceutical industry, it's also academia. As we speak, we have body of experts, of which I'm the chairman, that we're going to, or that will give money, not give money, give money to successful applicants in terms of strengthening the development or research and development of drugs, herbal medicines, vaccines, and other medical products.
Professor Adeye,
So,
if I may come in, Professor Adeye, you mentioned something earlier. Let's just step back a bit. You talked about the question of personnel for our pharmaceutical industry, for instance. And then I put that against the question of supply, the ingredients needed for the pharmaceutical industry to even operate. So personnel talks about the university systems. You said that the university systems are not up to par. They've failed in producing the personnel needed for that sector, for the medical sector. But then one begins to wonder, even when the personnel are there, what happens to the market, the supply of the ingredients? They are not available. So what would they work with? Because I do know that almost all of our universities have faculties of pharmaceutical sciences that handle some of these things. So how's that working out?
question, it is a compounded problem. I started with the personnel. I then went to the regulatory. It is the fact that we were over dependent. The only thing that the pharmaceutical companies do not import is water. The ingredients are not there. And this, you cannot manufacture ingredients or not, whether active or non-active ingredients in the country without support from the government. That is part of what the government is doing. You cannot set up APIs or active pharmaceutical ingredients companies without training the personnel, without having solid science foundation. It is not, mom and pop type of business. It is solely based on science. So you are right about the fact that we weren't importing, we weren't making anything. But that is changing as we speak. There are 2 or 3 companies now that are going to be making some active pharmaceutical ingredients. There is another talk about making lactose. Lactose is one of the non-active ingredients. We cannot even make it. We cannot make it because we think importation is the best thing, but it's the worst thing that could have happened to us.
All right, Prof. Let me just swing over to Professor Emeje, who's of the Nigerian Institute of Pharmaceuticals Research and Development. He's head Advanced Biology and Chemistry Laboratories, Center for Nanomedicine and Biophysical Drug Delivery. Prof. Emeje, thank you very much. The question I asked Professor Adeye about personnel as against supply, she's talked about the companies that are coming up thanks to the pandemic that are going to be manufacturing some of these active ingredients. Would that make any difference in our drive for medical supply, seeing that the whole market is clamoring for, as they say in economics, when supply is scarce, the supply is is low as against the demand that is high, what happens is the prices go up. Would that make any difference?
Thank you. Definitely, it will make a difference. No matter how you see it, it's going to make a difference. And like the DG NAFDAC has said, it is true that we don't produce anything, and we have been talking about that for at least a decade now. And the fundamental reason for that is that the country has not been interested in research and development. And if you are a country that is not interested in research and development, you are simply a market for other countries who are interested in research and development, because they will make theirs, they will make innovations, and then they will sell to you, and then you are happy buying. And the day they decide not to sell to you again, you remain at their mercy, and then you begin to run helter-skelter. Can I not be able to produce my own? Which is where we find ourselves today. So if we begin to have companies that will make API, it's going to make a difference. But there's a place to start from, and that place is called research. That's where to start from. Let it not be that we are going to have pharmaceutical companies that said we are making API, and all they do is to go back to Asia or Europe or America, get intermediates, and come here to say that they are producing API. That's not how to do it. How to do it is to do research and development. You start in your country to produce those things you need. Start to finish. That is how it is done. Over the years, I've been in research for over 15 years now. This is the first time I'm hearing about research and development as a national agenda. And the truth be told, no matter how we talk about it, we are not going to be able to do that now in COVID-19 era. Maybe when there's COVID 25 or 26, and we maintain the tempo we have started now to ensure that the country goes into research and development or what it needs, then by COVID 25, 26, we will no longer be looking up to other countries to import anything. So,
how much research and development is going on right now? We have had some research institutes come and talk to us in the studio that they are actually doing research into looking for how to deal with this pandemic.
a lot of research has been on, and let me quickly go back to what your colleague said, that there's almost all the universities have schools of pharmacy. No, about 20 universities have schools of pharmacy, and then there are faculties of sciences. Drug production or research and development in drug is multidisciplinary. It's not just about pharmacy. It encompasses all the sciences. And that is why a pharmacist is versed in all the sciences that make up pharmaceutical sciences. Now, if you go to our universities and our research institutions, there are a lot of theses, master's and PhD theses that have looked into our own biomass, the indigenous materials, to say we can come up with products that will be useful for taking care of our own ailments, for taking care of the diseases that are available in our own environment. But it ends there. They all end on the shelf. Why do they end on the shelf? They end on the shelf because if you look at the processes that culminated into those theses, in most cases, families funded those research by the students, by the postgraduate students, the supervisors, the lecturers or researchers, in most cases, funded those studies. So they end up at the level that it cannot go for development. So we call it basic research. So it ends up at the basic research level. If you go to the research institutes, for example, where I work at the National Institute for Pharmaceutical Research and Development, where we do development, where we upscale, where we do pilot scale, and we try to do proof of concept to say that this is doable in the pharmaceutical industry. It also ends at the prototype level, at the pilot level, because it is expensive, and at the level that you need to do clinical studies, clinical trials. These are expensive studies that take hundreds of millions of naira. You know, I mean, like I say, hundreds of millions of naira now for us is big, but these days we hear people pocketing billions of naira in their homes and sort of ways. Anyway, we didn't know it existed, but that is all that we need, and it is that if you do that, that's what will make you have products in your own environment. And by the way, let me say this too, that you see, it is not professors. You don't need professors in pharmaceutical industries. If we actually look at our own environment and the indigenous resources that we need to develop our own products, we have good and well-trained pharmacists and scientists that can do the work. So let nobody tell us that one country, because our people have not gone to one sophisticated country or the other, that is the reason why we cannot make our drugs. The truth is, government over the years has neglected research and development. So that is where the problem is. We already have skill. This country has the skill, has the manpower, has the personnel to produce what it needs. What it needs is the enabling environment, the infrastructure to do that. It's not available. If you provide this infrastructure, if there's the political will, provide the resources that is needed there, which is 10 times less than what is being stolen in Nigeria, we will have our own products.
Okay. Dr. Jekam, as he was talking, I was thinking about the area of cables. We have got to a point now where you're building a house, you go to the market to buy cables for your wiring, and you are looking specifically for made in Nigeria cables. You don't want to buy imported cables, because those who use them tell us that the quality of the cables made in Nigeria is better than anyone that is imported. And I'm thinking, so at what time do we reach the level where we are looking for the drugs that are made in Nigeria because we trust the efficacy of those drugs better than the ones coming out of God knows where? I'm not going to mention anybody's name.
Fantastic. I'm even happy you raised this. And you know, from Prof. Meja had said it already, that everything starts from research and development. But to talk about specifically your question and interest, coincidentally, DG NAFDAC already talked about efforts at some indigenous pharmaceutical companies to begin to produce API. My organization, Bloom Public Health, is doing something about first of its kind in Africa. There are with partners abroad, even within Nigeria, the National Institute of Industrial Pharmacies, to set up a pharmaceutical hub in West Africa. I think that in the next 10 years, at least Nigeria will produce more than that's the target objective, to produce up to 70% of our medicines and even our APIs. So that's the goal of the pharmaceutical hub. It's just, you know, a hub, a pharmaceutical park where indigenous pharmaceuticals can come in, you know, combine resources to produce and even export, so supply our own pharmaceutical needs in country, and now become a hub and export for, at least within Africa.
The sub-region.
Sub-region, yes. And it's no longer a thought. It's only a vision, because we already have a space, and we're rolling out very soon. Of course, it's a long-term project, but there is efforts. First, DG has talked about this, and coincidentally, my organization, Bloom Public Health, is in the forefront leading this with other partners. So I think it's not going to be a bad story. I think we will have to move on this trajectory to get this to get to this promised land of manufacturing ours.
We'll get there.
Yes,
as we move on.
No, that's what she said.
Yes, no, because the prof, he's just trying to say we're not going to wait for COVID-25 for that to happen.
Okay.
But the important message is that we move at this pace, because we had an Ebola experience. We had an Ebola experience. What happened after Ebola? All of us went to sleep. So I said the greatest injustice of this period would be that after all this, we forget what has
The
happened during this
lessons.
COVID lessons learned. So I really want to believe that with the impact globally and locally, I don't think, I just want to believe, let me not say I don't think, I want to believe that we won't completely forget this. At least for once, the health sector will get some attention, attention, you know.
No, this one is
that it
more than
deserves.
some attention. This looks like enormous attention.
No, I don't think so, because anyway, that's the story for another day, because we talk about all that. We talk about the diversion, because not all COVID, everything you're seeing is kind of COVID, but that's not the only thing happening
There
there.
are other
You'll
things
believe that. Other things are there existing. COVID is only an add-on. You understand? COVID will come and go, and we still have malaria, we have other things, women are
We
dying
were still
every
talking
day.
about Lassa fever before
Excellent.
COVID came. But let me, Professor Ade, this, when I said what I said about it looks as if the health sector is getting more attention because of the pandemic, in the midst of all the other things that we had to deal with before the pandemic set in, in this same period also we had had stories about people coming up with different innovations, ideas of what they said could cure this, could cure that. Some have even said we have something that can cure COVID-19. Clearly, some have come up to say we have this that can cure AIDS. But again, you said NAFDAC has been going through a process, an audit process by the WHO. When that process is done, what would be the difference between the NAFDAC of old and the NAFDAC now? Would that help those who, because there are many who have these research ideas, who have these ideas or curative products they said they put forward. How many of them are with NAFDAC? And what's NAFDAC doing to encourage others to come up with such ideas?
Wow, that is such a a good starter because I'm very passionate about the local content. We have a low-hanging fruit, which is in our backyard, in our farms. That is herbal medicines. And we've neglected it, just like what Professor Emeje said. If the government is not backing up research and development, you will have graduates that are weak, that cannot do analytical reasoning, because there was no opportunity while they were going through school. In Nigeria, we'd be doing theoretical practical because there were no labs in many schools. So what I'm saying is that this herbal medicine renaissance, we have given it a renaissance. NAFDAC has given it a renaissance because we started the Herbal Medicine Product Committee March of 2019, before COVID. But it is resource intensive. What we have been doing for years in NAFDAC is registering products that we know will not kill anybody. I'm talking of herbal medicine, which is listing them, which involves doing safety tests and whatnot. But we've not taken that to the higher level, we meaning the country, because the typical herbal practitioner doesn't have the money, may not even understand the process, that it is not just safety, it is efficacy. Efficacy involves clinical trial. That is part of what the administration is doing right now for potential herbal medicines to be stepped up to the clinical trial stage. That is part of this CBN health sector R&D innovation scheme that we are working on right now. There is going to be, the announcement will be coming this week, and there will be opportunities for academia to apply for these grants. So it is because we have neglected R&D, we have neglected health sector for many years. What is the relevance between that now and what NAFDAC is, the position where we are right now? This is an outcome of the strengthening of our organization, of our agency, emphasizing what we are supposed to be emphasizing, because that is what WHO global benchmarking expects from us.
Okay, Prof, if I may interrupt you, please. We just need to go on a very quick break. We'll come back to look at what is expected of us, global benchmark, and how that's working out what we have on the local scene. Please do stay with us. Thank you for staying with us. While we went on that break, Victor Tenes says the government should consider the ban on importation of drugs that can be produced in Nigeria. It could strengthen our industries and increase our lives for their drugs. Michael says,
Here, so that one.
yeah, Michael said, let education, he wrote a long thing, but at the end says, let education be totally taken to the laboratories and not to the classroom. Professor Ade, you were talking about what the global benchmark is, but while you're talking about that, let's look at where we are. What would it take for us to get to that global benchmark?
Thank you so much. We started this journey January 16, 2018, barely a month plus after I resumed in NAFDAC as a DG. And where we are going right now is what is called maturity level 3. You have levels of maturity from 1 to 4. 4 is the best. And an example is FDA in the US, has 4. For Nigeria, if Nigeria now NAFDAC doesn't have maturity level 3, Nigeria can never manufacture vaccines. And we have brilliant scientists that could develop vaccines, but if we cannot translate it into manufacturing, scaling it up into registrable products, then all the efforts will have been wasted. So this is where we are going to get to maturity level 3. And I'm telling you, we are keeping sleepless nights in NAFDAC because there is no assumption about any part of our regulatory system, from clinical trial to regulatory system to lab system to vigilance. We are taking care of all the details, and there's no excuse. It is not like I know this person, they will pass me. No, because you have to meet regulatory global standards, and that is what we are doing right now. So that is part of the reason why I said that we have a better future to look forward to. Part of our regulatory system, let me tell you, is the global benchmarking. How is your pharmaceutical industry doing? So we have to write guidances, train our staff, strengthen our, the capacity, the competence, because you cannot give what you don't have. And to be able to give and strengthen the pharmaceutical industry, we have to be strengthening ourselves. And the goal is for us to be able to manufacture vaccine, but that is not the goal, because after 3, we are going to 4. And the government is listening. The government has devoted money to NAFDAC, to another company that is PPP, that is collaborating with the government towards manufacturing of vaccines, because that is going to help in the universal health coverage. So everything is kind of tied together, and if we don't look at it that way, we'll be deceiving ourselves as a country. But we are now looking at it. The Ministry of Health is looking at it that way. The SGF's office is looking at it that way. The presidency in general, they are looking at it that way, because there is no silo when it comes to the healthcare sector. So
Okay,
our
Professor.
goal is to get to yes, please.
Professor, speaking generally now, we don't hear enough of pharmaceutical companies or importers getting penalized or punished for either manufacturing substandard goods or importing substandard goods.
Thank you so much. That's a very good comment. We do a lot of seizures. A lot of seizures. We have an investigation and enforcement directorate. We've actually, maybe the last month, we've shown 2 episodes of what our enforcement does. Let me tell you about tramadol. We got an information rather, about a year plus ago, that 31 containers of tramadol are heading to Nigeria. And they said, NAFDAC, do something about it. We did something about it. We apprehended 23 or 24. The rest turned back to where they were going. That the street worth is 1.3 trillion naira. The street worth of what we seized. But it's not just tramadol. We seize all sorts of unregulated products, falsified, counterfeit, and we burn them. We go to Shagamu to do, that's where we do our destruction. We do investigation. In fact, about 5 weeks ago or 6 weeks ago, we busted a house where they are making falsified medicines using pharmaceutical company labels to do all sorts of things that will kill our people. The problem is we are reaping what we sowed from 2011 to 2018 when NAFDAC was not at the port. The cabals that have been formed, you cannot dismantle them overnight. No excuse at all. I'm not giving NAFDAC excuse at all. But that is part of what we have inherited, and we are dismantling them as we speak. Another issue was you need money to do all this. It is only the 9th Assembly that approved NAFDAC budget for the first time since I came. We have money. We didn't spend the money we're not supposed to spend, but we couldn't spend it. Now because you cannot take Okada to go and do inspection or to run after people that are doing falsified medicines. It is now that our budget has been approved for the first time that we have a lot of things with BPP, vehicles to buy, equipment to buy. So our problems are a reflection of the country. But what my point is now, the future is better for us because this administration realized that decades of neglect happened, and they are trying to make up for it. But NAFDAC, we're going to get to 3, we're going to get to 4. When we get to 4, our companies can trade globally. It is not just regulation. I put regulation with trade. Because if we have quality products, we'll be able to sell it. African Free Trade Agreement that is coming up. We'll be able to sell all over Africa. We'll be able to sell globally. It will increase our GDP.
Okay.
So
Prof, thank you very
all
much.
these building blocks will add to something. Thank you.
Let me take this, Professor Major. There's this other thing about the data. Now, Igbosa sent in a message that says, at the primary level, the poor quality of epidemiological data hampers effective understanding of the unique health concerns within the communities in Nigeria. Data. Now, there was this report about herbs that were brought in from Madagascar. What's the update on that? Because the news out there was that Nigeria was going to look at it and see how effective it will be, and that appears to fall within your purview, if I'm correct. If I am correct. But then the other side is how much of data is there actually as regards what we need and what we have to work with.
Okay, thank you. I know that very soon you will say there's no time, that you have to come back next time. But before you say that, let me quickly say something that I must say before there will be no time. Number one, every one of us should blame ourselves for where we are now. And the media, you are a culprit. The media, blame yourself very well for where we are now. Now, if you are forced to know why, you will give me time to talk about that. Number two, government should blame itself for where we are now. Number three, even the medical community should blame itself. Now, I needed to say this. These are the 3 areas that we will need to, because we must also know the problems for us to know solution. In pharmacy, for you to have a new drug, you must know the old drug, know the character of the old drug, and then know how to come up with a new one. Now, and then let me say, there's somebody that sent a message that they should ban all the drugs that we can produce. It's not only drugs that we can produce, they should ban all the drugs. Because there's no drug we will not be able to make in our own country. So when we ban, then we will suffer, and then the end of it is that it will be well with us. Did anybody dream that there was going to be a time where planes will not be allowed to fly, and so you cannot travel to another country? Did we dream? Have we not all remained in our country for 4 months now? So when it happens like that, those that live after that, you design good future for yourself. Now, let me go back to the issue of there's no good epidemiological data. Epidemiology or whatever data is all research. Research is not just when you go to the lab to put chemicals in the test tube. Going to the field is also research. Now, we are complaining about there's no data, there's no data. The data you are saying is not good. How were they generated? The data that the lecturers sent their students, whose parents gave them money to go and generate data, you are saying is not good data? In serious countries, funds are provided by government, funds are provided by the industry, by the private sector for such data to be generated, for such studies to be conducted. So as long as people use their own money, their pocket money, the resources they have in order to survive, as long as they are using it to carry out research, then you will have data that you will not be happy with. Just to respond to that. Then on the issue of Madagascar, the DG NIPRI, Dr. Obi Adikwe, has already addressed the public on that. The study was conducted in our institute, and then the DG came up openly with that. The minister has also talked about that. Even the secretary to the government of the federation told the world the outcome of the study from NIPRI. We did it, and let me tell you that we did it because we wanted to tell everybody that this institute can do anything when it comes to research and development. We are a center of a WHO and Andy Center of Excellence for Research and Development, for goodness sake. So even though Madagascar just sent one concussion in their bottle without any data with it, the institute cracked whatever they brought and came up with information which the DG and then those in the higher authorities have told us about. I'm sure it's on Google. If you just Google, you will read all the information that you need to know about what we did to COVID. And when I was talking about COVID this, COVID that, I was just trying to let us know that, look, in 2014, there was COVID 2014. It was called Ebola. Now there's COVID-19. There will be COVID other years again. Okay? See what this government is doing now. For example, there's huge money that is being devoted. They call it Pharmaceutical Intervention Fund. The CBN said this is billions of naira for academics to write proposal for grants. The DG NAFDAC just told us now that he's the chairman of that committee. So why are we not going to expect something from it? But when that money is given and study is done, if you leave it there, we will get, in 2020, anything where there's another COVID, we will be talking like this today, because in 2014, when Professor Christian Chukwu, the Minister of Health, then led an excellent team to fight Ebola. If we started what CBN is doing now, we will not be talking today that, hey, we are at the mercy of other countries. We won't be saying that. It is because when we defeated Ebola, everybody went to relax. So now, this one, the luck we have, you see, the topic of your discussion is impact. Impact of COVID-19 on medical supplies. The impact is positive and negative. One of the beautiful impacts, positive impact of COVID-19
Professor,
is that
we must
it has
start winding
leveled all
down.
of us. The richest man in this country is the same as the least person in this country. We are at the same level. That is why all of you are talking now.
Down. But Professor Adeyeye, would you please comment on this advice from Owolarafe? He says NAFDAC can help scientists in the academic institutions to present their research by giving students and lecturers opportunities to showcase annually their researches, which can be taken to the next level, hence becoming the bridge between the school and the industry.
That is such a good comment or question from the audience, because you're touching my own heart. I was a professor for 30 years, and I believe in experiential. When I was at Nsukka, I did my externship at Ilupeju, Sterling Winthrop. and I know how much I gained. So I'm 100% for that. In fact, we've been having students in our lab in Oshodi and Yaba. However, we could do better, but why are we doing what we are doing now? Because I have to pick my battle. I came into NAFDAC with 1,000 fires burning. And then you have to
Professor
know, okay, which
Mojisola
to bring down.
Adeyeye,
We're going
Director
to
General
help him.
of the National Agency for Food and Drugs Administration and Control, NAFDAC. Thank you very much for joining us this morning. We also had with us from our studio in Abuja, Professor Martins Emeje, who is the head, Advanced Biology and Chemistry Laboratories, Center for Nanomedicine and Biophysical Drug Delivery. We also had in the studio in Lagos, Dr. Chioma Ejekam, consultant public health physician and executive director, policy research and programs, Bloom Public Health. Thank you very much, all three of you, for coming to talk to us this morning. There's never enough time when you're making sense, but that's the nature of television and the nature of live television.
So we'll soon tell him that we're running out of time.
Exactly, and we have run out of time, Professor Emeje. Thank you very much for joining us. Sunrise will return in just a moment with another interesting conversation.